Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It's Season 3, Episode 42. The Pittsburgh Steelers have improved to 2-2-1 on the year with a statement victory over the Atlanta Falcons at Heinz Field. The Steelers finally pick up a win in Pittsburgh to the tune of 41-17. Certainly expected a high-scoring affair. I don't think any of us saw such a lopsided final score, Austin. What were your initial thoughts once the game concluded?
Well, I think we were all very impressed that the defense in this one, after allowing less than 20 points. My second thought was that Ben still isn't all the way there. He was why this game wasn't over in the first half, but he's getting back to normal. And I thought the run game improved significantly, thanks in part to Rosie Nix being featured a lot more than he has so far this season. What were your quick takeaways?
Well, obviously, this was the best all-around performance we've seen from this team so far. All three units were very good and stuck out in good ways in this one. On the other side, not to be a Debbie Downer, but the Falcons absolutely left plays on the field, and their defense is not a very good unit. There's a stat rolling around with all the tackles James Conner forced broken tackles, and really all I could think about was just the Falcons just aren't a very good defense, because what would we be saying if it were the other way around and Devontae Freeman broke a bunch of tackles from, like Artie Burns and guys like that? I think we'd be saying, he played well, but I think it's more about the defense. So I'm not gonna take too much into account that performance. And similarly, it's one win, and it certainly was an impressive game, but I'm not ready to say this team has turned a corner yet. But it is a first step, and a big one at that, and that's obviously very important when you are trying to turn things around. As far as the injury report for the Steelers go, not a whole lot going on. LJ Fort injured his ankle, reported by Mike Tomlin in his press conference. Terrell Edmunds also has an ankle injury. And Ben Roethlisberger said on his radio show that he believes his struggles in connecting with Antonio Brown and struggles in general this year can be attributed to a hit he took by, I believe, Myles Garrett at the end of the Cleveland game in overtime?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Do you remember in overtime of the Week 1 game when the final turnover, when Schobert caught the fumble and set up a Browns potential, game-winning kick that was blocked? Roethlisberger was hitting the elbow. I think it was Myles Garrett, but I could be wrong. Either way, Roethlisberger was talking about that elbow injury being something that's affected him this year, and I think there's some merit to it.
I agree. I don't think it's the actual injury, though. I think I think it's a mental thing. At least that's what I thought I gathered from it. I thought that he was saying, like, I keep whipping it because I'm scared I'm going to hurt it. I thought that's what he was saying. I didn't think he was saying that it hurts still. I thought he was afraid of re-injuring it.
I think there actually might be aspects of both, because I forget I'll need to pull up the exact article in a moment here, but I think he said something about he just needed to man up or something along those lines. So I'll look it up right now. But your X factors were Terrell Edmunds, Vance McDonald, and who were your X factors in this one?
Well, there was Vance McDonald and Mike Hilton. I'm sorry, I tried saying both their names at the same time. And Vance didn't really pull guys like I had hoped. He didn't have a big stat line either, so not as much. He didn't do as much as I had hoped as an X factor. Then for Mike Hilton, he did feel like quite a bit of a difference maker, even though his stat sheet doesn't say so. He put Matt Ryan under pressure quite a few times. I believe it was 3 overall. I think he rushed Matt Ryan 4 times, and I think got a pressure on 3 of the 4. And I felt like overall he did great in coverage, especially with who he had to face. As for my bold predictions, they were not at all close. Big Ben didn't have a big enough day for my other 2 bold predictions to come true. Vance only had 1 reception too, so that hurt. Antonio Brown needed 75 more yards, and I would have been right because I predicted 175 yards and 2 touchdowns for him, and he only got just over 100. But it is what it is. How were your X factors, and how did your bold predictions pan out?
Circling back to what I was just talking about, it was an article from the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. Roethlisberger, quote, "I had to suck it up in the second half of the Steelers game." So basically, to quote him from his radio show on 93.7 The Fan, "The second half I had to talk with myself and I had to suck it up and deliver the ball like I need to and force my way through it. I was just dealing with a bit of an elbow issue," Roethlisberger said. "It made me drop my elbow a little bit for the comfort factor, which can cause the ball to sail." So I believe there's certainly a mental aspect to it, don't get me wrong, but I believe that what Roethlisberger was saying was that he just had to adjust his mechanics a little bit, and for whatever reason, he did it in the second half, and maybe it hurt, but it obviously, as we saw, was a huge difference maker. As far as my... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, no, that sounds completely more like injury than it was the mental thing. I mean, like you said, mental is still going to play a part. It's why he was doing it automatically for comfort, but I guess I only saw part of the quote. That's probably why I thought that. But all right, you continue with your bold predictions and your X factors.
Well, my X factors were on the opposite ends of the spectrum in this one. James Washington was my offensive X factor, and he was a non-factor completely. He had no catches on 2 targets and an offensive pass interference penalty. On the other end, T.J. Watt turned in a fantastic defensive performance, possibly his best game as a pro. 3 sacks, which was more than I predicted. A forced fumble instead of the interception. He was in the backfield all day. So I hit on one and I completely whiffed on the other. All right, Austin, on offense, the Pittsburgh Steelers put up a total of 34 points on offense, because remember, one of those was a defensive touchdown. We saw a complete game on the ground and through the air for really the first time all season. There was a lot to like, but I guess from start to finish, what did you see from this unit that you really liked and didn't like?
Well, James Conner really started the game off hot as anything. He came out swinging. He could have easily had 200 yards rushing in this one if Randy didn't start randomly trying to throw it all the time in the second quarter when the run game was working really well in the first. Regardless, this was probably his best game in his career. Despite putting up less yards on the ground than the Cleveland game week 1, he got the 2 touchdowns and was the second on the team in receiving yards with 75 on 4 receptions. So he really excelled here, and it's mostly why the offense was so successful in this game. I guess I can't give all his success to him, though. The offensive line played out of their minds in both regards of their jobs. I don't even know whether to say they were better at pass blocking or run blocking in this game, because they were so great at both. They didn't allow a single sack and only allowed 1 tackle for a loss in total this entire game. Those are outstanding feats, especially when they were up against Vic Beasley and Tack McKinley. I'm very proud of them for this performance. After I've been giving them a lot of flack for them not opening up holes for Connor. But thinking of blocking for Connor, Rosie Nix is a beast. I'm really glad they put him out on offense for more than 1 snap this game. I said last podcast that they have to start using him more. And guess who was out there on both of Connor's touchdown runs in this one? None other than Rosie himself. He wasn't the biggest factor on the first touchdown run, but that second one happened because Rosie was out there to block. So I'm really glad Randy has decided to use him more the same way Haley did when Le'Veon was here. Moving along with the offense, let's talk about the passing game. It could have been better. Ben really is still out here missing throws pretty bad and being off target, which he has come out and said that some of these errant throws are because of that elbow injury we talked about. It's as we said, both a mental and physical thing. He needs to work on that really bad, because it probably is the only thing holding the offense back in this game. I don't know whether he has to rehab it, or maybe he just has to suck it up like he did in the second half. But he got to do something. He didn't do terrible, though. He still had a 65% completion percentage and threw 3 touchdowns to 1 terrible interception. So, not terrible stat-wise, but I would know but I just know he could do better. It kind of limited how well the receivers could do since he wasn't on point, but still, Antonio Brown had a great bounce-back game, going for over 100 yards and getting 2 touchdowns. He was really the only one to eat in this one. I mean, Juju got a touchdown, 4 catches, but for only 34 yards. Ryan Switzer only made 1 catch, and then James Washington didn't catch either of his targets. So then for the tight ends, all 3 of them caught 1 ball, but that was it. I sort of wanted more from Washington and Vance, but Ben wasn't at his best, so I can't give them full blame for not being more prolific on the stat sheet. Plus, the Steelers were focused more on running in this game because it was working better, but still, though, overall, I was pretty happy with the offensive performance in this one. But what did you think of the offensive performance against the Falcons?
Well, the Steelers, as I criticized them and Randy Fichtner last week, it took 5 weeks, but we finally saw a quick start from them. And let me tell you, it did wonders for this team because, as we know, the offense did hit a bit of a snag in the second quarter. They didn't score, but their lead that they got in the first quarter was enough of a cushion to keep them in front at halftime. They made adjustments and had a great second half. I'd like to point out that Randy Fichtner, the offensive coordinator as well, has earned my criticism for not running the ball very often, not committing to it. Well, he made a point of committing to it early on Sunday and in the second half, and it worked out. Reminiscent of the opening game against the Browns, James Conner was terrific on the ground and through the air. He had a rush of 30 yards and a catch of 29 yards. Not to mention he was featured on the first drive, being involved in 7 of the 8 plays on that drive. I'd also like to point out that if you're looking to strike balance, the Steelers ran 29 pass plays and 29 running plays. So that is perfect balance right there, and obviously it worked out pretty well to the tune of 34 offensive points. I was going through the game, and there were a few key plays on that first drive. Obviously, the first play that I wanted to mention was a third and one play, a 2-yard run up the middle by James Conner. That was huge. I'll get into the third down conversion rate in a little bit. The next play was a 29-yard pass to James Conner that was dumped over the middle. Vance McDonald had a crushing block that helped to spring him. And then the very next play after that, it was a 30-yard run by Conner. I watched that play like 10 times because I was trying to see what was going on. Roethlisberger came up to the line of scrimmage and yelled, "I see you over there," pointing to someone on the right side of the defense. I don't know what that I don't know what that signified, if that's even a word, or what the significance of it was. But then he yelled spacing immediately right before taking a quick snap. I don't know if he saw something favorable and made a quick call, but regardless, it worked out for the Steelers as Conner went through and broke a tackle, which, by the way, was terrible. Number 42 on the Falcons, I forget his name. He did not have his shoulder square and over-pursued Conner, and it was just an easy broken tackle, and Conner was off to the races. That was a critical play. And just 8 plays, 75 yards, a touchdown, 2 passes, 6 runs. I'd also like to point out that all the running plays on that drive were from under center, which was another point of criticism of mine, is that it's harder to run the ball from the shotgun at times. You got to mix it up, and you got to be able to run from under center, and that's something that the Steelers did very well on that drive. So I wanted to point that out. Things kept going on the second drive. The Steelers were backed up at their own 3-yard line and engineered a 97-yard drive, which included, to start the game, 5 third-down conversions. One of them was from a penalty, and it was a 38-yard defensive pass interference penalty, which was kind of ticky-tacky, I think, but obviously you take that. The struggles we saw from the offense last week were not to be found in this game. Conner finished with over 100 yards for the second time this season, 2 more touchdowns, making it 5 on the year for him. 4 catches for 75 yards, just an all-around great day. Ben Roethlisberger, as you mentioned, was kind of up and down to start this game. He was hitting some throws and missed on other throws in the first half. Antonio Brown's Wi-Fi connection with him was really struggling in the first half. And my thoughts were, if the Steelers were going to lose this game, it was going to be because of Roethlisberger's inconsistent play and not the defense. But despite the first half struggles, including missing AB on a short, I'm sure you remember this play, a 3rd and 4, Roethlisberger was flushed a little bit out of the pocket and just missed a dump off to AB, and he had like 20 yards of field in front of him. You remember the play I'm talking about?
I do remember. It was really, really upsetting.
That could have been a huge play. I actually think that might have been the first third down the Steelers didn't convert. It was either the first or second one, but that one was pretty frustrating. And then he did have a great throw to Juju for the first touchdown. He looked off the safety, looking to his right, and then it left Juju wide open in the end zone. For whatever reason, the Wi-Fi connection got stronger in the second half. We kind of confirmed the reason for that earlier in this podcast. 4 of Brown's 6 catches came in the second half, and 85 of his 106 yards, or sorry, 100, was it 106 or 101? I'm confusing myself now. He had 101. Okay. 85 of his 101 came in the second half. But Roethlisberger was clearly a lot better, and the offense finally started looking like the dynamic unit we hoped it would be. Not to be lost in this game were the performances of Jesse James, Smith-Schuster, and Vance McDonald, among others, who chipped in a little bit as well. I wanted to recognize the offensive line because I was very critical of their play last week as well, and I believe the Steelers were not running the ball well, mostly because outside of running plays very often, it was clear they weren't blocking well, and we saw a big change in this game. All 5 guys did a great job in opening up space for Connor, and when they can be effective run blockers, it goes a long way for this offense. And obviously, again, they were terrific in pass protection. I don't think they gave up a ton of quarterback hits. I think it was just a couple, no sacks, just an overall great day at the office. I also wanted to mention 9 of 12 on the day in third down conversions. That's pretty dang good. That'll really help your team. We saw a lot more play action in this game. Did you notice that? Because I feel like the Steelers were pretty effective running play action in this one. I felt like we saw it a lot.
Yeah, I actually did feel like we saw it a lot more than usual. That compared to the last 4 games prior to this, it was a welcoming surprise that I didn't think was really going to happen. I didn't expect it, but it worked out well, I would say.
Indeed. It's nice to see that for a change, what happens when the Steelers are up by double digits early instead of being behind by double digits. A couple more interesting things to look at. On 2 separate 3rd and 1 plays, we saw a shotgun toss to the left to James Conner, and they both worked. I wonder if you think if at some point Bell comes back and becomes a starting running back, if Conner, because he had several third and short conversions, if the Steelers use James Conner as the short yardage back, because that's something that Bell seems to have struggled with throughout his career. And Conner might be fast and decisive enough to just you can run those kinds of plays where you couldn't run tosses with Bell because he's such a patient runner.
That's definitely an idea. I feel like because of, I think you actually nailed it perfectly, because I think because of Bell's skill set is why he struggles on that area, because he thinks, he hesitates, he looks for a hole. James Conner just runs forward. You have to think that even when James Conner was struggling to rush this year, he wasn't really losing yards. He was just kind of getting stuck up and getting 2, and that's it. And that's what you would want on a 3rd and short situation. You just need him to get those short 2 yards where he just runs into people and goes straight forward, and that's it. No thinking about it, just doing it. And I feel like that might be the move, because they do want to. They already said they want to keep using him when Bell comes back. At least Ben definitely wants that. But yeah, I think that might be the move, to be honest with you.
We'll have to see when the time comes, obviously. But a couple negatives, though. Obviously, the 2-minute drive was absolutely perfect at the end of the first half until the Steelers got into the goal-to-go situation. I think you might have seen my tweets. I was kind of being... I made a point of saying this drive has been perfect up to this point, now finish it. And then after the interception, I quoted it saying, update, they didn't, because I don't know what happened. And on 1st and goal, Roethlisberger fired a dangerous pass to Antonio Brown that was almost picked off. And then the second play, he bought time, got out to his left, and for some reason threw almost like he just lobbed it right in the middle of the end zone, like it's a game of 500 out there. That decision should have never been made. He should have either run it or done anything else, really. Maybe even take a sack there. I really don't understand the thought process there, and it worked as poorly as it could have, because that could have been a huge moment in that game. And then finally, the fumble by James Conner was a near disaster. It came when the Steelers were ahead 13-10, and just like the one in Cleveland that he had, it could have been a huge pivotal moment. But the bounce went his way this time, but I still want to see him do a better job of holding on to the football. But all things considered, a pretty good day from the offense. And I I guess at the end of the day, we're hoping that we can see more balanced play from these guys, even though they didn't put up any second quarter points. The output was 13, 14, and 7, or sorry, 13, 0, 14, and 7. So they were scoring at least a touchdown in 3 of the 4 quarters. That's pretty close to consistent offensive football that you're going to get, and that's a good sign going forward. On the other side of the ball, I can tell you nobody saw this one coming. The defense shuts down Matt Ryan and the Falcons' explosive offense to the tune of just 17 points. Who'd have figured? Of course, this is the week the Steelers' defense shows up, right?
Oh, yeah, it's exactly how we all expected it. Like, I mean, if you didn't know that this was going to happen, like, you're basically stupid. You basically don't watch football. So, but speaking of stupid, this may sound stupid, but I found L.J. Fort's performance bittersweet. It was really good in this game, like exceptionally good, getting 6 solo tackles, a sack, and a recovered fumble in the end zone, which, I mean, he technically shouldn't have had, but Bud Dupree just managed to kick it right in front of him. So what is the bitter part of this, you might ask? As soon as this game finished, it had me thinking that what would have happened last year if L.J. Fort played more than Sean Spence? Like, it just makes you question that move even further when Fort was more like Shazier in the athletic aspect in the first place. It was almost upsetting. It got me thinking a lot of that, like how things could have been different for the Steelers last year. Because I think we both expected Fort to be the one that stepped up, and I mean, we weren't going to be excited about it, but we thought that it was a better move, especially with Sean Spence coming in, and it made me bitter. That's why this was bittersweet. I thought this was only one game, obviously, but I thought he did well in it. But that's the past, and we are here now. And the team held a great offensive unit to only 17 points in some sort of miracle that I was not expecting. Somehow, the defense got it together, despite having to rotate linebackers quite often. And not only that, but all the linebackers actually looked good out there. I already talked about L.J. Fort, but obviously I think everyone is thinking of T.J. Watt for the biggest linebacker performance in this game. He led the team in tackles with 8 and had 3 sacks and then a tackle and a half for a loss besides those sacks. He was beyond disruptive, and I'm glad the missing man has been found. We could take him off the milk cart. Other than him, I was very happy with the play of Tyler Matakevich, John Bostic, and Anthony Chickillo as well. The only linebacker I wasn't impressed with was Dupree. He didn't do bad necessarily, but he did almost kick the Matt Ryan fumble out of the back of the end zone trying to recover it. And then he also had 2 illegal hands to the face penalties, which was kind of rough, but he still didn't even do terrible through those 3 things. But moving to the defensive backs, and this honestly shocked me, I want a round of applause around Pittsburgh for Joe Hayden. I want everywhere Joe Hayden walks in this next week to be clapped and bowed down for, because Joe literally shadowed Julio and didn't allow a catch until late in the third quarter. Granted, Julio got 4 more catches in garbage time, but he went almost 3 quarters without a catch, which is incredible to me. I was not expecting that at all. I thought the athletic mismatch would have... I didn't think Julio was going to absolutely destroy him, but I thought that athletic mismatch was going to at least just, I don't know, get him 80 yards. Like, I was impressed. But then Calvin Ridley was kept in check as well. I mean, he caught 4 of his 5 targets, but he only went for 38 yards, and he had a long play at 21. So I attribute that to the great tackling in this game, and that leads me to Terrell Edmonds. After going after him, specifically saying he was looking like a third-round pick who doesn't get involved in plays, and how I wish Burnett was back for this one, he came in and impressed me. I felt like he was involved every play, and that showed up on the stat sheet as he had the second most tackles on the team with 7. I felt like this game was surprisingly really good with him, as he came down to make the tackle a lot, and I was happy with that, because one of my biggest problems with him so far was he wasn't getting involved. He was never coming down to help with the tackle and stuff. But I was also happy with Sean Davis playing this one. He ended the game with 5 tackles. So I can't really say he had a bad day either. He did what I expected and had an okay day. As for Sensabaugh and Burns, they did decent as well. I still don't know who to blame for the Mohamed Sanu touchdown. But to me, it looked like a coverage breakdown. maybe John can offer more insight on this to blame, because I went back and watched, and I literally went back and played this without, I'd have to say 20 times, this one specific play. The camera angles on it are terrible. I think it's Mike Hilton is to blame here. That is who I think. I mean, Sean Davis also took a bad pursuit angle, but part of me thinks Sean Davis was supposed to be focusing on Julio. I think that for this game, the idea was we need to shut down Julio, who I don't know if you remember what the play looked like, but Julio was actually on the outside, and that's where Sean Davis was. Sean Davis was looking, and Mohamed Sanu came from right next to Julio on the right, on the left side, and then went up past Mike Hilton. I think that's why Sean Davis was slow to react. It's not giving him a break, but like I'm not sure exactly if maybe Sean Davis was literally told, like, you watch Julio, and that's it. Just don't. That would seem stupid, but I'm not sure. I don't know if he was expecting Mohamed Sanu to get free that quick. Again, I'm not totally sure. John Bostic might have been the one that was supposed to get into that area. I really don't know. I'm my final answer is Mike Hilton was to blame for that, but it was a bad angle to watch that. Anyhow, let's finish with the defensive line. Cameron Hayward looked great in this game, getting 1.5 sacks and applying pressure. I also saw a few good things from Hargrave, but Tua continues to not really do much. Don't get me wrong, Tua actually got 2 tackles and Hargrave only got 1. But I saw Hargrave pushing up the middle and causing pressure. And we haven't really seen much from Tua all year, and this game was no different. Even though the defense was good, he still wasn't. So that's what I thought of the defense coming out of this game. What did you think of the defense coming out of this game?
I'm watching this play, Austin, and what I can tell you right now is that I don't believe this is Mike Hilton's fault. Let me just I'm regathering my thoughts here. So the Falcons this was the play they ran. They basically ran what looked like almost like a run-pass option, but it wasn't. It was like a run-pass option with multiple layers. So there's Freeman up at the top with the handoff. I don't know if Ryan could either dump it off to him or just hand it off to him. And then they have this look of a bubble screen at the bottom of the screen, which I believe is Ridley at the bottom, if you can picture the play with the 3 receivers down there. So you see what looks like Ridley down there, and it looks like that's what Hilton is playing on his initial step is down towards him because he's running out like it's a bubble screen. You see Julio and then obviously Sanu releasing up a little bit inside too as they're looking back to Ryan. I don't know who to blame specifically for this catch. There's 2 people that are in my mind for this. Do you have the play up?
Yeah, I'm watching it now. Yeah, I have it up again.
I'll try to put it up for everyone on the podcast at the end of this episode. But basically, what you see is the play fake will draw John Bostic in the middle over to the right, which, to be honest, he has to kind of respect that, so I understand that. The other person I'm looking at is Anthony Chickillo, who I don't know what his responsibility was. His first step, if I'm trying to remember here, his first step was back, and then he kind of gets drawn in a bit. When he gets drawn in, I believe that could have been his responsibility back there, but he also could have been on some other kind of assignment. So my initial reaction is that it's not Mike Hilton's fault. It's either Bostic's or it's Chickillo's that the ball was first thrown and caught. And then obviously beyond that, my thought is that Sean Davis made a play similar to what Mike Mitchell did all of last year, where he took a horrible angle and Sanu basically just ran around him for a touchdown. Do you agree with or concur with my opinion?
See, I think I'm, after looking at it one more time and hearing your view on it, I think I'm going to go final answer with Bostic, because to me, it looks like, because I'm focusing on Chickillo. Now he looks more like a quarterback spy. Like, he literally looks like he's not moving. He looks like he's just watching Matt Ryan, but he's not moving forward. He's just kind of sticking in place. Like, he dodges the tight end. That is a tight end, right? Or is that a wide receiver? I can't actually. It's Mohamed Sanu. Mohamed Sanu runs right past him. He just kind of lets it happen, and then he just keeps looking at Matt Ryan, but he's not running forward. Like, he's just kind of there. He takes like a step forward, but not like he's trying to pass rush him. I think he's literally set up as a quarterback spy, and he wasn't supposed to be in coverage there. But I'm not sure. Again, this could just be a coverage breakdown, and everyone's confused. Or Chickalo was confused on the play. Maybe he was supposed to be dropping back. But I think I'm going to go with Bostic for the final answer there.
Either way, one of those two, it looks like, is at fault for the pass being completed, and then obviously Davis was at fault for the rest of that. But back to the rest of the defense. When you think about it, that was really the only big play the defense gave up all day. So that's good. And here, let me tell you something that's interesting about the other big play. They had a run of 20 yards by Devontae Freeman. First of all, I believe the defensive line absolutely dominated in this game. And you need look no further than the rushing stats if you take away that one long run of 20 yards. The Falcons averaged 2.3 yards a carry if you take that 120-yard run out. And that run happened just because it happened to be kind of an unlucky play. Let me see if I can find exactly what happened. All right, so here's what happened. It was the Steelers were a nickel. They blitzed off the right side with Watt and Hilton, but it was unfortunate because they had two guys. They were literally running right in between the blitz on the outside and right between where an area was vacated because of the blitz. So because they came upfield blitzing to rush Matt Ryan, they opened up room to be sealed off, which let Freeman kind of run through, and then he could then, move upfield. So it was basically just unfortunate timing for that blitz. If it was a normal four-man rush or you had someone else there, Hilton probably would have filled in or Watt could have done something else there. That was just unfortunate timing for that play. Otherwise, that's not happening, and we're talking about the Falcons averaging a dismal 2.5 yards a carry all game long. So I see that play, and we just talked about the two biggest plays for the Falcons all game long. They didn't really do that much of note besides that. I mean, I'm scrolling back through here. The opening drive was kind of big, was kind of huge for the Steelers too. The Falcons were moving the ball. The big critical play on that drive was the last one. 3rd and 6 from the 38. LJ Fort coming in on the sack of Matt Ryan for a loss of 7 yards. It was a delayed blitz up the middle. Good coverage and scheme on 3rd down. A big bend but don't break kind of situation. Something we hadn't seen all year. And I thought it was very important from that point on. It was a huge confidence booster. I know you would agree with me completely 100%, but Mike Hilton is such an important part of this defense. He's such a weapon blitzing off the end. Honestly, I think he times it up so well, and he's so fast and explosive. He reminds me a lot of Troy Polamalu as far as a blitzer goes, and he blitzes more often, so he's almost better than him in that aspect as just a blitzer. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that that play where the Falcons were sort of close to their own end zone, where he came off the edge and forced the incompletion of Julio Jones. Julio Jones looked like he actually had a step there, and if Mike Hilton doesn't get home, I think he just barely hits him. I think that that pass is completed. It might go for a touchdown because Julio looked like he had a step over there. So Mike Hilton definitely as a pass rusher definitely does look like Troy Polamalu in that regard. He does really well at it. It's like his thing.
The second sack of the game, it was a TJ Watt sack. We're going to put this play up for you too. Everything about this play is beautiful to me. And I've watched this play so many times. So essentially it's a 4-man pass rush on a 1st down. You have Hilton blitzing off the end. You have Hayward on the left side, Watt closing in from the same side as Hilton. You have Tuitt up the middle. The Falcons run a bootleg where they have the tight end pulling. The tight end ends up on Cam Hayward, and Hayward's out there one-on-one on the tight end. So Hayward is basically mauling this poor dude up the field, and he's getting to Matt Ryan. While this is happening, Mike Hilton's coming in. He's so explosive off the end that he literally comes in and he's basically right at Matt Ryan when he's finishing with his drop back. So Ryan has to immediately step up. And in fact, Hilton goes a little too far and he's behind Ryan. So Ryan has to step up immediately. And there's Cam Hayward on his left. And while that was happening, TJ Watt was making a great move, getting around the I believe, the right tackle or right guard for the Atlanta Falcons, and Watt's right there. So basically, the effective blitz by Mike Hilton pushed Matt Ryan up into TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, who were right there to clean it up. And if Watt didn't pick up the sack and he was just at least in the area, Hayward would have finished it off. And my favorite part about that whole play, Austin, I counted 4 offensive linemen, 3 of them directly in front of Stephon Tuitt. And, like, I know you've been ripping hard on him, but if you have 3 people blocking you, you're doing something right, even if it's not by design. If you're having 3 people in front of you, that means the rest of your pass rush is having a favorable matchup, as we obviously saw in that play. It was funny to me to see that they have all these guys blocking out in front, and they either miss somebody or it's like, oh, well, there's one guy here, everyone else is behind us. So it was funny to me. It's like, well, clearly something worked well on all fronts there. I loved that play, and that was one of my favorite plays from this game. Again, I'm going to be a little bit of a Debbie Downer here. Matt Ryan didn't play well in this game. He missed on a lot of throws in this game. He sailed several passes, including a max protection play-action pass play to Austin Hooper where he had a step on Tyler Matakevich. He missed one on a 4th down play, too. What else? Joe Hayden was just fantastic. What more do you want to say about the way he's played this year when he's been healthy? He's just fantastic, and I don't even know like what to say at this point. It's like I really never saw this one coming, and it's like the defense. It's kind of like Keith Butler listened to us, where he was just so much more aggressive with his blitzing and his schemes. I feel like the Steelers really made a concerted effort to get after Matt Ryan in this one, but they also didn't do it on every play. They made sure to kind of mix it up, which is kind of what I was hoping for, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I agree.
The Falcons' second TD drive, their last score of the game, it was a nice long drive, but it was aided by a couple penalties, including one by Bud Dupree. And you think about it, if the Steelers don't commit those penalties, it's very likely that they're going to struggle to move the ball. Maybe you don't give up those points, and who knows what happens from there. But you think about it, if you can possibly get away with not giving up a touchdown there, that's 10 points against, and that's fantastic. Cam Hayward had another great day. His sack was probably the meanest, most disrespectful thing I've ever seen an All-Pro do to another All-Pro. He absolutely mangled Alex Mack right in front of Matt Ryan and just dumped him. That was just ridiculous. And you mentioned Terrell Edmonds. He had a fantastic one-on-one tackle in space on 3rd down. A couple weeks ago, those were the plays he'd miss, and all of a sudden it's a 20-yard gain. This is progress. And you know what? I was very impressed with the defense for obvious reasons, even if Matt Ryan and the offense didn't play as well as they could have. A couple of other things, nitpicky things. Matakevich in coverage on Calvin Ridley, that doesn't make sense. He actually had good coverage on the play. He almost deflected it. Tyler Matakevich really stood out to me in a good way. I was not expecting him to play well in this game, but he really showed me a lot of good things in this game. And also, the interception Artie Burns dropped, I know that's a tough catch, but I really wish that he'd hold on to that. It's nitpicky, yes, but he should have had that. And then, obviously, the last big defensive play, the strip sack by Watt, great pursuit. Dupree nearly bungled it, but Fort recovered it for the TD, basically capping the game. Matthew Thomas also played some defensive snaps at the end of the game on the next drive. So just all around a great performance from the defense. And even though their competition didn't play their best game, they did what they had to do. And just, it was fantastic to see something I can't say anybody really expected from the Steelers. And this great day we're talking about, it doesn't end with the defense either. The special teams had to get involved as well.
Oh, yeah. One of the biggest surprises for me in this game is, did we actually see a great game of punting from Jordan Berry? Is this real life? He punted 3 times with 2 landing inside the 20, one thanks to Brian Allen, but he averaged nearly 48 yards a punt, so good job from him in this one. As for the other kicker, though, he missed another PAT, his third in 5 weeks, and it's becoming unacceptable. He really needs to start being Mr. Automatic again. That's what his extension was for, and it's getting really rough out here. You go back and now calculate like all the points that have been left off the board from missed kicks now, and it's getting upwards of, I think now we're at 15 or 14. We're floating somewhere around there with all the missed kicks, but as for big plays on special teams, good on Rosie Nix for blocking that punt. It was a great play, and he almost looks like a defensive end coming through there, or even a linebacker. It's just a great play from him to block that punt. Other than that, I really don't have much else to say. The coverage team on both punt and kick returns were good again. No kick returns past the 25 again on 2 kick returns. But I've basically come to expect this now. I think that the Steelers special teams unit is up there in terms of the coverage unit. So I have high expectations coming from them. Do you have anything to add about special teams?
No, just on the missed PAT, it was a bit of a high snap, but Mike Tomlin reaffirmed his confidence in Boswell during his press conference today, talking about how Boswell has been huge in a few games in Cincinnati for him, and that he's going to be glad to bring him to Cincinnati this week too. All day long, fantastic punts and punt coverage. Roosevelt Nix is so good at special teams. Even if he wasn't a good fullback, he'd be a good special teams ace on his own. Danny Smith, as we've talked about, has been great with scheming as far as plans to attempt to block punts, and we've seen it work nearly 3 times, and this time it finally worked. Nix with fantastic effort, and the rest of the unit did a good job to clean up the mess when the punter picked up the ball. That was, in my mind, the most pivotal play of the game. Brian Allen played well. He had an assist on a big tackle and down to punt at the 2-yard line. Welcome back to the roster, young man. And for all of Jordan Berry's struggles, he has shown the ability to work well with the coverage team. So that it was very encouraging to see. And for all the struggles Boswell he did make 5 PATs in this one after missing that one. So hopefully that helped him out a bit too. All right, moving to our awards section, jumping right into the big stop of the week. This week there were a few options to choose, but to spice it up, change things, I decided to go with T.J. Watt's strip sack of Matt Ryan at the end of the game. Obviously, it was recovered by L.J. Fort in the end zone for a touchdown. Just capped off what was a fantastic defensive performance and just all around a great day, a statement day for the defense, and that was a statement play for the defense. Who is the Stronger Than Steel player of the week?
Well, I was also between quite a few for this one. I felt like Rosie Nix had such a dominant performance blocking for Connor and blocking the punt. Then James Conner and Antonio Brown both had 2 touchdowns for a lot of yards. However, my last and final, the final 2, is between T.J. Watt and then James Conner. It was really hard to pick between the two. I ultimately went with T.J. Watt. I felt like Watt was unstoppable in this game, and leading the team in tackles and having another monster 3-sack performance was enough to push me over him. It was really hard, though, because Connor almost had 200 scrimmage yards, and then he obviously had the 2 touchdowns. But I really just thought T.J. Watt was crazy in this game, and he shouldn't have had that penalty called against him for literally tapping Matt Ryan's leg. I don't think I mentioned that earlier in my defensive talk, but that call on him was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. And I think that's what Mike Tomlin was talking about after the game. But congratulations to T.J. Watt for winning the Stronger Than Steel Play of the Week. So what was the Stronger Than Steel Play of the game?
Well, we talked about it a little bit. I think it's quite clear. The best choice for this is the punt block by Roosevelt Nix. Just a fantastic effort and a fantastic scheme all around. Anything you wanted to add?
Nope. I think it was Mike Tomlin's favorite play, and I think it was ours too, so I think it makes sense. But moving forward, I just wanted to talk about one more thing before we got to positional grades. I want to let you all know about TSEShop.com. They're the #1 place for all Pittsburgh Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates memorabilia. So do yourselves a favor and check them out. But anyway, now we got to go to the positional grades. Quarterbacks, What grade did you give Ben Roethlisberger for this game?
He gets a B+, and obviously the negatives in his game, it's mostly from the first half. He was just off at times, and the interception he threw was just something I can't get out of my mind. But he was fantastic in the second half, and his reestablishing that connection with Antonio Brown was huge for this offense. He'll get a B+.
I'm going to give him a B-. The stats don't look bad, but those misses and that interception that caused the Steelers to miss out on points really weighed down hard for me. So I'm going to go with a B-. Going to running backs, how did Connor, Nix, and Ridley do in this one?
Well, they get an A, and it's mostly off the back of James Conner with a little bit of Roosevelt Nix. Yes, Stephen Ridley didn't have a lot of running room in the few snaps that he got, but, I mean, that's not a huge deal. Connor is very lucky that fumble wasn't recovered by the Falcons. It was 13-10. That could have been a huge play, just like his fumble against the Browns, but he lucked out, and he had a great game otherwise. He was dynamic, and obviously Roosevelt Nix blocked well for him and had that special teams blocked punt too. So all-around great day. So I went with an A.
I'm going to agree with you. I give them an A as well, and it's sort of almost the exact same reason. That fumble out of bounds by Connor was super scary at the time. But that's what's going to keep them from an A+. The Steelers got lucky. It went out of bounds. But Nix was a great blocker and really looked fine when he came in. So I give them an A for that performance. Moving on to wide receivers. What grade do you give the wide receivers?
I went with the B just because there wasn't a whole lot going on out here besides Antonio Brown, and that's okay. That's not terrible, but you still want to see more from James Washington. But Brown did enough to keep the offense churning, so I went with the B.
I'm going to go with an A-. It could have been better, but it was mostly Ben's fault for the first half. But Antonio still had a big day with 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards. And Juju had a touchdown, so it couldn't be less than an A- for me. But moving on to tight ends, what did you give them?
B+. They weren't really involved in the passing game, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. They were fantastic as run blockers, and that obviously does a lot for a team when your tight ends are helping out in the running game. So B+.
I'm going to give them a B-. I think that they could have contributed more than 4 catches for 33 yards between the 3 of them, but those 4 catches were on 5 of their total targets. So I'm not going to say they had a bad performance, just average. Oh, and Vance put a huge block on in this one. The man is so physical. He does something just that impresses me every week now. But offensive line, I think we could agree both had that the offensive line had a great day, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. A unanimous A+ for me. Again, Roethlisberger all day to throw the ball, and then they got mean, down, and dirty in the ground game. Best performance I've seen from these guys all year, and it's been quite a long time since I've seen them have such a complete game like this.
I'm going to agree with you. A+. They allowed 1 tackle for a loss in the entire game and 0 sacks. Very great performance against the defensive line that had Tack McKinley and Vic Beasley. I thought their run blocking was great in this one too, so A+. Defensive line, what do you give them?
I know we're going to disagree a little bit here. I'm going to go with an A, actually. And I didn't initially think this when I first watched the game, but upon rewatching it, and again, I already mentioned about if you take away that one play by Devontae Freeman for 20 yards, where it was kind of more an unlucky matchup play than it was getting beaten, really. I really think the defensive line controlled the game here from start to finish. We already know Hayward had a really great day, but Hargrave and Tuitt made a couple plays on their own. And just because you're not making tackles, it doesn't mean you're not being impactful. This was a good example of that kind of a game where they were taking up double teams and letting the linebackers and safeties get around to make some plays. I thought they did a good job in this one, so I gave them an A.
I'm going to go with a B. Kevin Hayward looks like a force to be reckoned with, but no one else really impressed me. I did only go through the game once, so I would have to actually go back and watch, since they sound like they did better than I thought on the first run-through. Like you said, you thought they did bad on the first run-through too. So, but for now, I'm just going to leave it at a B because that's what I thought. Moving on to linebackers, what do you give them?
A. Bud Dupree's penalties are changing this from an A+ to an A. He wasn't even that bad, though. I mean, honestly, everyone from Watt to Medikevich was rock solid. They were in the backfield at times. They weren't liabilities in coverage, which was kind of surprising. I was really impressed with all of them, really. So I gave him an A.
I'm going to go with A+. TJ Watt and T.J. Watt, L.J. Fort, John Bostic dominated in this one. Even Matakevich and Chikolo looked good, so I'm going to give them an A+. Finishing up with the defense, going with defensive back. What do you give them?
I went with an A-, and it might be unfair because they absolutely played their best game of the season. But Matt Ryan, as I said before, he missed a ton of throws. They were lucky they didn't give up a lot of other big plays, and he was just inept trying to get the ball to Julio Jones like Roethlisberger was with Brown in the first half. He just could not get the ball to him. Several balls were too low, several balls skied into the sidelines. Just not a great day for him. But that doesn't take away the fact that the defensive backs made the right plays on the balls they had to, make plays on. So A- for me.
I'm going to give them an A. It would have made it so much easier to give them an A+ if they just didn't allow Julio to get all those yards in garbage time. But that coupled with that bad Mohamed Sanu touchdown put them at an A for me. Moving on to specialists, what do you give them?
I'll go with an A- too. The blocked punt, great coverage teams, great punting. All of this contributes to a good grade, but Boswell's missed kick is very frustrating. It's a bad trend, and hopefully it's going to be broken soon, but it drops the grade to an A- for me.
I actually agree with you. I give them an A- as well. Barrett punted great, as you said. I literally don't have a complaint for him, and then we can't praise Nixon enough for his blocked punt, but Switzer didn't really do much, and Boswell missed another extra point, so it kind of knocked them down from a straight-up A or an A+. So A- for me. Finally, wrapping up with our grade section, coaching. What grade do you give the coaching in this one?
They get an A. We finally came out of the gate strong on offense and defense in this one. Did you know the Steelers are second in the NFL in offensive red zone touchdown percentage at 78.6%? Did you know that?
I had no idea. I would have never guessed. Behind who, do you remember?
I think it's actually Seattle, of all teams, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that not... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that would have been literally one of my last guesses. That's so confusing to me, but continue.
I'm interested now. I'm pulling it up again. Yeah, Seattle is first at 80%.
Okay. All right. They didn't even get a third down conversion in their game against the Cardinals. So I don't know. That shocks me. I guess when they get there, it's like that's all they need. But damn, what happened to the Ravens? So the Ravens were that bad in this game that they just played. They had one of the highest red zone efficiencies ever.
Well, remember they went 1 for 5 last week against the Steelers.
Oh, that really killed them. Damn. All right, fair enough.
They're tied, or actually they're in 8th place at 65%. Would you believe that in 30th place is the Jacksonville Jaguars at 38.46%?
I would, because Blake Bortles is not that good, and they haven't had Fournette.
Also true. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here that's kind of interesting. The Jets bring up last place at 35%, but I don't think that's all that surprising. But yeah, basically, wasn't that one of the big complaints about Todd Haley's offenses was that they weren't good in the red zone? Well, this plus the great scheming on defense with the blitzes and the special teams with the block punt means the coaches had a great day and a great week of practice leading up to this game. So they thoroughly earned an A in my mind.
I'm going to go with slightly less. I'm going to give them an A-. The blitzes dialed up were working perfectly on defense, but something that really bothered me in the first half was when the Steelers saw how successful Connor was on the ground, and then they switched it up and started throwing, and it was super unsuccessful. But Randy committed to it anyway. What? The game could have been over in the first half if not for that, personally, and it bothered me enough to knock them from an A to an A-. So that is my final grade, A-.
All right. Let's talk winners and losers. Give me your winners and losers. Let's just roll right through and give me all of them on offense and defense.
Sure. My offensive winner is L.J. Ford. He just played so well in his first shot at being a starter, and it was against a good offense, too. I was very impressed with him. My offensive loser is James Washington. He only got 2 targets, but I want more from him. I feel like Switzer has done better than him offensively to this point, and that's not something I expected. I apologize. I just completely messed those two up. Obviously, LJ Fort was my defensive winner. James Washington was my offensive loser. I did that backwards because I wrote them backwards. Going to my offensive winner is Alejandro Villanueva. He's been the weak spot of the offensive line so far this season, but in this game he played great. He was part of the reason the line gave up no sacks, and the tackles had the harder job coming into this game, in my opinion, than the middle of the line. So Villanueva impressed me. As for my defensive loser, since I was backwards, it's Stephon Tuitt. I just really couldn't pick out anyone else, so I'm going to beat the dead horse. Like I just didn't really know who to. I was still confused when I was typing this up. I was still confused on who the Mohamed Sanu touchdown was to blame. I don't think I could even call John Bostic a loser. So I'm still going to go with Stephon Tuitt. He's just going to be my whipping boy of the year for the rest of the year. So who are your winners and losers on offense and defense?
Well, going back to your losers, it's hard to find losers in this game, which is why I'm doubling down on James Washington. There's really nobody else to pick right here. On defense, I went with Sean Davis just because whoever you want to blame for giving up the catch to Mohamed Sanu, we kept talking all last year in the second half about giving up those long touchdowns where it's bad to give up those big plays. It's another bad thing to let them run the last 20 yards to the end zone. And Sean Davis, he was solid for most of the game, but he looked like Mike Mitchell out there on that Sanu touchdown, running wild and way off target, making an easy score for Sanu. My winners were Tyler Matakevich on defense. For months, I was thinking this guy was pretty much useless outside of special teams. In this game, I saw some very encouraging things as a run filler, even rushing the passer a bit, and even, believe it or not, in coverage. I'm not saying he's Ray Lewis or James Ferrier or Lawrence Timmons, anything like that, but Matakevich showed me that Kevin Colbert wasn't really talking out of his rear end when he was praising Matakevich this offseason. He played a good game, and you know what? I'm all for having more depth at inside linebacker. I'd still rather have Rashaan Evans or something like that, but I guess at the end of the day, maybe the inside linebacker position isn't as bad as we had once thought. And then my other winners, run blocking. And I know it's not a player, but the offensive line, as we have well documented, they struggled immensely for the past 3 weeks in opening up holes for James Conner. And they finally got down and dirty this week, and they played fantastic. And I wanted to make a highlight of that. Steelers moved to 2-2-1 on the season. Let me ask you, where's this team headed right now?
Well, last week I was thinking 8-7-1. This game is going to be really telling because this next game against the Bengals. Because right now, I don't know if I can. I feel like that was a miracle at the moment, so I'll improve them to 9-6-1. I had to really think of that because the tie really makes it difficult for some reason in my head. But if they win next week, if they could give me another solid win against a surprisingly powerful offense, I think I could boost them back up to their the 10 wins I predicted them, or maybe even 11. I think 11 would be pushing it though. So I'm going to go with 9-6-1 right now. What do you say?
After the Steelers dropped to
9-5-1. My bad.
10-5-1.
So, okay, I was right. No, 9-6-1. In my head, I questioned it.
No, the only reason I would know is because I remember the last time the Steelers had a tie, they were 10-5-1 at the end of the year. But after they started 0-1-1 with that loss to the Chiefs, I made a decision that I was going to. My belief was they were going to finish 10-5-1, and I'm still on that right now. I know there was a lot of pessimism from last week's game, and I understand it. I was certainly pessimistic too, but I still thought it was too early to make that kind of decision, that it was like, all right, this is a 8-7-1 team at best. It still could be. I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not saying it's not going to be a bad team because there's still flaws, obviously, but, it's one week at a time, I think next week will be where we can really start to learn a little more about this team. What else did you think about the game? Any final thoughts?
Just that Juju's celebration of giving birth and letting James Conner deliver the baby, that was an interesting one. I want to see if he gets fined for it. I can't see why, but I feel like the league might be like, nah, don't do that, Sam. And just say, here's a fine, don't do it.
What isn't roughing the passer? You see that call on TJ Watt, the one that JJ Watt was complaining about? He was like, can someone explain this to me?
That was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. He tapped his leg, and then Matt Ryan, fell over. It looked like a flop to me. I honestly, genuinely don't think TJ Watt had enough force to do it. And TJ Watt was falling forward. He not only did TJ Watt barely touch him, TJ Watt barely touched him when he was already falling before Ryan had the ball out. So even if he hit him, I would have been pessimistic about him getting that, because he was already falling. How is he supposed to dodge the quarterback midair? But yeah, continue.
Yeah, that was ridiculous, and John Bostic got called for one. I'm a little less mad about that. It's just what is he supposed to do? I know it was a hard hit, but still, man, that's kind of ridiculous. All right, what's
John Bostic? Oh, sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I felt the John Bostic one. What I saw when I was watching was it looked like John Bostic shoved him back down at first. I thought John Bostic was really stupid at first. I think that's what the refs saw, if I'm being honest with you. Because what I saw was when Bostic was getting up, he literally pushed Ryan back down from another angle. It didn't look like the same way they first showed it. But I'm thinking maybe the refs saw that at first. I'm not sure.
All right, Austin, what's going on around the Steelers facility, and then after that, what's going on around the league?
Well, some Steelers news. Preseason standout Damone Patterson, who I loved, has signed to the Bucs practice squad. He got a few tryouts. I think he was with the Titans just last week and such, but he's finally got another job with the Bucs. Then also a former Steeler, last year's starting safety Mike Mitchell has landed a job with the Colts. The Colts are one of the most banged-up teams in the league this year. It bodes not well for Clayton Gathers, their current starting safety. So we'll see what happens with him. He might stick around for more than a week or two, but with all the Colts injuries. But I'm not sold on it. Mike Mitchell also had a bunch of meetings before this with the Titans, with the Bears, and there's another team that I can't remember who he had a meeting with, but
the Bengals.
He lands with the Colts.
The Bengals were the other team.
There we go. Yep. Do you have anything to add about that?
No, although I would also like to mention Landry Jones has been working out with several teams. I keep hearing that he's going to get signed soon, but we still haven't seen anything yet.
Yep, I've seen that. Patriots, Cowboys, Jacksonville. He's gone all over.
Buffalo as well. What's going on around the rest of the league, though?
Well, this morning we were given some sad news. Chargers owner Alex Spanos has passed Tuesday morning, and it's unfortunate. I always said the Chargers are when the Steelers aren't on, one of my favorite teams to watch, and it's kind of sad. The owner of them he passed this morning. So do you have anything to say?
No, but I know that his son is a really hated man. Dean Spanos is really hated in San Diego for what he did to that team, and now that team is just they don't play home games. Even when they play home, they have more road. The road team has more fans than they do. So the Los Angeles Chargers experiment looks like a colossal failure right now.
Yep. But moving on from there, the Bengals versus Chiefs Week 7 game has been flexed to Sunday Night Football. The Rams-49ers game was there originally, and it has been moved to 4:25. It just makes sense. The Bengals versus Chiefs is going to be an offensive powerhouse, and Rams-49ers. The 49ers are just injured, and it might be rough for them. But it's that NFC West game that I always hate. Rams-49ers was close last year, and the 49ers were trash. So we'll see. Do you have anything to add about that?
Nope. I do not.
All right. So moving on to the next bit of news, Eagles running back Jay Ajayi has torn his ACL and will be has been placed on IR. I apologize. The Eagles are likely to acquire a running back via trade. They've been really heavily pursuing it, having reported interest in Le'Veon Bell and having called the Buffalo Bills about Shady McCoy. Do you have anything to add about that?
Well, their running backs are Wendell Smallwood, an injured and old Darren Sproles, and Corey Clement. I would definitely want to bring someone in.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for them. I don't think that any of those running backs are exactly what you want. But moving along, these are two quick news, so I'll put them together. Bucks guard Ali Marpet has signed a 5-year, $55 million extension tie into the team through the 2023 season. Only really bit the significant amount of money about it is that he got 26.3 guaranteed, and that is the third highest guard has ever gotten. It's not record breaking, but it was a big extension nonetheless. Then the second little bit of news is with Corey Grant landing on IR for the Jaguars. They have signed veteran running back Jamal Charles. I thought that was significant news report only because Adrian Peterson has been resurging on the Redskins. I mean, he's not doing great, but he's not doing terrible either like he did with the Saints and Cardinals last year. So maybe Jamal Charles has a resurgence with the Jacksonville Jaguars given the right situation. Do you have anything to add on these last two bits of news?
Ali Marpet, Hobart graduate from Division III Western New York, representing. I like it.
My man.
Around the league, let's take a look at some of these games. Titans and Bills. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the Titans are, and it bothers me. They confuse the crap out of me.
I agree. I think I called them a contender last podcast, and then they just came out flat against the Bills. I don't know what to think of them at all. I agree with you. I think they're just a conundrum. I'll call them that.
A very nice play by Ryan Tannehill ensured that the Bengals would cover in this game, where it looked like they weren't going to until Tannehill was a bum. So that was interesting. The Dolphins seemed to be falling back to earth really quickly. The Bengals scored, 27 straight points?
24 because they finished with 27 points. Yeah, it was 17-3, and then the Bengals just decided that it was comeback season. I was so annoyed. I was like, okay, cool, now the Bengals can come back and just barely win because that's what I think is going to happen. And then, the Dolphins were like, we're sputtering out, and just let the Bengals come back and cover on them. I thought I had it. I knew that the Bengals were going to come back. I didn't think they were going to come back that strong. I was pissed.
Sputtering would be a good way to describe the offenses of both the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. A defensive struggle, and yet again, I am frustrated in every which way that this game did not end in a tie as it should have. The Browns kicker had their kick partially blocked. I forget his name. He had his kick partially blocked, and it still went through, and I was very, very salty about that. I was really hoping we'd get another tie because, as I've said before, every tie that happens every week in the NFL makes the NFL look terrible. And I think that this is the worst overtime rules in existence. I hate them more than I hated the sudden death overtime. That's how much I hate 10-minute overtimes. And I hope there are more ties because this is just ridiculous. And I want the NFL to look bad over it.
Oh, it's terrible. And the kicker is Greg Joseph. I unfortunately didn't get to see the end of the game. I had it on, but damn DirecTV was like, nah, we can't show you this anymore. And I was like, what do you mean you can't show me this anymore? I pay for it. And it's like, no. It just literally, the screen looked at me and told me no. That's basically what happened. Because I had this game on. I was very curious to see how it was end. I didn't get to see it. I had to listen to it on Twitter. But I'm surprised. I'm just surprised that the Browns fared so well, to be honest with you. That's all I have to say.
It makes it a little more of a logjam in the AFC North once again. Packers at Lions. Nobody had a worse day in the NFL this week than Mason Crosby. Well, maybe Eric Flowers, but he's also terrible. Mason Crosby is a former Pro Bowl kicker, and he left, 13, 14 points on the board against the Lions. That would have been the difference.
Oh, yeah. He missed a PAT and 4 field goals. So 13 points would have won them the game. They only needed, I think, 11. I think, if I remember the score correctly, they lost 31-20? I actually don't remember. But regardless, no, I know that Mason Crosby, if he hit those field goals, would have been enough. That's terrible, man. I think we all saw this coming. I was surprised Davante Adams played, to be honest with you, but other than that, I think we all saw that the Lions were going to kind of mess around with the Packers, but not in that way. I don't think we saw that Mason Crosby was going to miss all those field goals.
Jaguars at Chiefs, a game that read, I believe, 30-14 in favor of the Chiefs, and let's be honest, the score was closer than it actually seemed. The Chiefs were in control the whole time, and despite another, maybe, shall we say, pedestrian by his standards this season, day by Patrick Mahomes, Blake Bortles was awful, and the Jaguars and Jalen Ramsey's mouth had no chance against Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City Chiefs.
My favorite play was just watching Blake Bortles look Chris Jones in the eye and say, "Take it," and then literally just threw him the ball and then tried to tackle him. It was the funniest thing I ever saw. Literally, Bortles trying to tackle Chris Jones was one of the worst attempts of a tackle I've ever seen. He literally threw a ball to the defensive lineman and gave him the pick six. It was one of the most unathletic things I've ever seen, but it gave me a good chuckle.
Just for the lulz, I'm watching it right now. Oh man, what a perfect pass! Hit him right in stride. All right, where else? Not a whole lot of the later action. I guess the Giants-Panthers game is interesting just because of all the comments being made with Odell Beckham Jr. And I was thinking, hearing all this stuff on the national sports talk, it's kind of nice when it's not about your team for once.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't even matter. Antonio Brown got just to cut into this with some more Steelers news. We didn't even talk about it. Antonio Brown has another. I don't know what to call it. Like why can't I think of the word? Like, it's not a conviction, but he's getting sued. That's just the easy way to say it. He's getting sued because he apparently almost killed someone by throwing a vase out of his window when he was angry. So that's a bit of Steelers news for you. That it's not over for us. You can't just laugh at the Giants having their prima donna wide receiver doing stupid stuff. Antonio Brown apparently threw some stuff out of his window and almost hit someone. So there's that. But back to the Giants game. Graham Gano hit a 63-yard field goal, man. That's just crazy. It still baffles me. Like, you look at a football field and just 63 yards out, someone can kick a ball. Like, it blows my mind. Game winner. Ooh.
That would have been good from 72, and I find it funny and sad at the same time because I'd be ripping my hair out. That's the second time in 2 years that the Giants have lost at the gun with 60-yard field goals, the other being Jake Elliott early last season too. So if you're the Giants, you're just like, wow, what do we got to do?
Blow it up and cut Eric Flowers, which they did.
They did do that. They certainly did. What else is going on around the league? Vikings, Eagles. We'll get into the Thursday night game in a minute. Everyone is talking about the loser of that game being done. I don't believe so. Let's just go right to the Monday night game. Redskins and Saints. Drew Brees, first of all, now NFL's all-time leading passer. He had a fantastic game. Missed out on one more milestone by not throwing his 500th touchdown pass, but either way, a fantastic game for him, and now it seems like for whatever reason everyone loves him, where in my mind he's always been kind of underrated, and now everyone all of a sudden is treating him like the way they should have been. It's like, why all of a sudden are we waiting for this? Like, where have you been the last decade or whatever? But maybe that's just me.
I think my favorite thing coming out of this game was Michael Thomas getting on Twitter, seeing that Josh Norman and Quentin Dunbar were talking smack about him, and then him calling Michael Thomas calling him Josh Norman his son, and he's like, "Daddy owned you," or some stuff. Josh Norman deleted his tweets because he was getting wrecked, but I think that was my favorite thing to come out of that game. Redskins got wrecked, and going back to your point that whoever wins this Thursday night football and whoever loses out, that is absolute absolutely wrong. Just to let you know, the Redskins are the top of the division right now. They're 2-2, and they just got blown out by the Saints. There was no chance. They were down by 27 early in the third quarter. Like, it was donezo. So this division, whoever wins it is going to be trash. Don't get me wrong. I think that they're going to be one and done in the playoffs. Whoever is lucky enough to verse them, probably the Rams. The Rams are going to have a first round bye. We won't know who's going to verse them, but that division is just garbage. It doesn't matter. The person coming out of the division might finish 9-7. If I'm being real with you.
I mean, it's still a little early to say that, the division winner is going to be terrible. It's just more likely they're not going to be as good. But absolutely, the loser of this game is not out, which will lead us into our Thursday night football prediction. It's the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning champions at 2-3, at the Giants 1-4. The Eagles 3-point favorites on the road. Austin, I'm going to go with the Giants to win this one. There have been 5 Thursday night games played this year. The home team has won all of them, so I'm going to pick the Giants.
I'm going to go with the Eagles to cover. I'm going to be the outlier here, and I'm going to choose them to win it because I think that they are the better team. They should be the better team. Even though the standings don't say so, I think that the Eagles are better than their standings say. So after calling that whole division trash, I think the Eagles will be better than 9-7. But, Eagles cover.
I agree with you that they're a better team, but something about Thursday night football is just, I don't know. I will almost never pick a road team to win a Thursday night football game. So I've been very happy the Steelers have been home on Thursday night football the last few years. One of the few times the Steelers didn't win on Thursday night football, in fact, I'm sure you remember, was a game Michael Vick started against the Ravens where the Steelers ran that quarterback sweep on a 4th down in overtime or something like that, and then that was a Josh Scobie game too. The Steelers absolutely should have won that game. The point I'm trying to get across, maybe I'm trying to persuade you, which probably wouldn't be smart in my mind if I think I'm making the right choice, but I don't know. Thursday night football is just something I bash on, and I think it's not as exciting, and I think we have seen some exciting games this year, but I think it favors the home team way too much, and I get having a home field advantage, but when the road team has practically no chance, they're basically finishing their football week and they're immediately right out there. I'm just not a fan of it. That's just my personal belief.
I'm so far behind that I should probably just copy you since you're 40-38 following last week. I mean, last week you didn't have a good week. I actually had the first week better than you last week by 1 game, but I should still probably take your word since you're way better than me, sitting at 20. I'm sitting at 25-53 on the season for my pick'ems, but I beat you last week. That's all that matters.
It was a rough week for both of us last week, but by that same token, you might want to do the opposite of me, I guess, just because that might be the only way you could catch up with me.
Maybe, yeah, that might be the move.
The good news is that there's still there's actually just over 2/3 of the NFL season left to go, so don't worry, there's still plenty of time to catch up. So, all right.
Or get worse.
Indeed, but time will tell. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions about the show, feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website listed in the description below, and check out the TSE Shop, tseshop.com. That'll be in our description as well. Austin, thank you so much for joining me again today. The Steelers finally back to their winning ways, and at 2-1. Certainly not the record I think we expected, but they have a pivotal matchup coming with the Bengals, and we'll get into previewing that on our next podcast. So as always, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast.
Have a good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.